welcome to a new episode of Story of Success, in which we interview prominent Egyptian figures. We'll be back with our guest after the break, so stay with us. In today's episode, I'm continuing my interview with prominent Dr. Mohammed Rifat. Today, I'm continuing my interview with him. Welcome, Dr. Mohammed.
Welcome.
Well, actually, we were talking about photography in the previous episode, and we've reached the area where you were talking about the sites that you enjoy photographing. Now, I'd like to ask you also about your travels abroad. And now, you mentioned that you liked Egypt more, but were there certain areas abroad which you really enjoyed taking photographs of?
Well, in the last 3 years, actually, to be honest, no. I'm planning to go, but because I didn't have enough time because of my work, I've been to a couple of areas, but just for conferences in the field. Mm-hmm. So I haven't decided yet where to go, because I have to make that trip, in particular for photography. Because when we go for conferences, there is no time really to spend in photography, because the sessions are quite long. So I'm planning very soon to go somewhere in Europe.
Now, would you tell me more about the conferences you've attended, and which was the most interesting one?
Actually, the conferences in my field are plenty. They are going every day, every now and then, and every month there is something and an event going here or there. Recently attended a course, actually it was in Britain, on doing how to do nasal reconstruction or rhinoplasty, what we call them. We called it rhinoplasty, which is the cosmetic procedure done to improve the appearance of nose, and that was done actually on cadavers. Which is like a corpse, and that was done in Britain. It was very helpful and very valuable. So that was the last thing I've attended. It was a very helpful course actually in my career.
Now, do you feel that being a plastic surgeon, and that constitute an aspect of beauty, because you have to beautify still, you're going to treat the patient, but still while beautifying him or her, do you feel that inspired you as a photographer or affected your photography skills?
Yes. If I'm looking or appreciating beauty, definitely I will have that feeling of the artistic sense of photography. I mean, if I'm interested in photography and know how to differentiate between the good and the bad, that can be applied in my field also. When I see a patient, I can know what's wrong with her, what's bad, what's good. But definitely this hobby will affect my attitude or my approach to the patients, and vice versa as well. In other words, I believe also arts in general have a great impact on physicians and people working in the medical field, whether paramedical or medical, because the arts itself, in all different forms of arts, they improve the feelings of the person who is practicing them. So he gets more compassionate, he gets more talkative to the patients. He's able to differentiate between the bad and the good. So that's very important. And on the other hand, there is an application of arts in medicine, and it was found that people who listen to music, they suffer less pain. People who attend exhibitions more and they have this sense of beauty, they have better immunity. So actually it's interchangeable, the effect between the arts and medicine.
Well, you've just mentioned music, and actually you yourself, you're interested in music.
Yes.
So would you tell us a bit about when did you start? You actually play the keyboard and the piano.
Yes.
So tell us more about the start of it. When did it begin?
That was a little bit backwards. I mean, when I was a child. My mother actually, she is the one who encouraged me for that, because she used to play the piano herself, and she was an artist. She graduated from Faculty of Applied Arts, and she encouraged me to go to join one of the colleges for music, for just to part-time. I mean, in my part-time, not to leave the school after school, and I used to play first just by my ear, and then she decided to let me go into more scientific way. So I attended some courses, and I went to Trinity College of Music in London. They have a branch here, but I haven't completed the whole grades, unfortunately, because of my time and my medical career. But still I'm practicing every now and then when I have free time. I have the basic knowledge, and I apply it when I have the time. It really affects also my life.
Why did you choose the piano?
Piano is actually it's what we call the father of all instruments. And if you ask other musicians who are playing other instruments, you find that it's a part of their training. They have to practice piano. For example, someone who's playing clarinet or oboe or whatever, they have to go through piano grades first before they go into the specialized instrument they have, because it's what we call the father of instruments. You use both hands to play, and you learn how to do a melody and a harmony at the same time. So it's like two instruments play together.
Now you also decided to purchase a keyboard. Now what's the difference between that keyboard and the piano?
Well, the keyboard is different from piano, but what I have purchased actually is a digital piano. The digital piano is different from the acoustic piano. The acoustic piano is the piano that we usually see, and it's in the concerts. The digital piano, it has this hammering action of the piano, but the sound is produced digitally. Although a lot of musicians may disagree with me, but I like it very much, because the quality of sound is very close to normal, and you can have variations of sound, and it doesn't need a lot of tuning every now and then like acoustic piano. But of course I respect to play on both of them, but because maybe this one is easier and I can use my headphones, especially if I'm working at night or playing on during night times where people are sleeping, so I just put my headphones and I can play for as long as I want. Have
you tried playing in public?
Yes, before, when I was in medical school, during my breaks or during my summer vacation, I used to play in some hotels just for a few days or so. And that was just really for my interest. It wasn't really a professional assuming a professional approach or career, but it was just I like to play in public, and that happened really long time ago.
Now, when you're gathered in a friends gathering, do you sometimes do this? You sometimes just they tell you, "All right, let's play something for us," and you tend to fly to them, or not anymore?
I tend, but recently I didn't have much time to practice, and these things really require a lot of practice. My career is just sometimes against me in that, because I spend a lot of time in OR, operating theater, operating on patients like the ones that I told you about, maybe for 10 hours. So when I come back home, I'm very exhausted and tired. And occasionally a weekend I can have time, but sometimes I have the conflict that I have to look after my family and my children. I have to take them. So it's a challenge, but I'm trying my best to find an hour or so during the week.
Well, for the music you play, which type of music you prefer? Do you prefer the Oriental, the classics?
I prefer classic, because my teaching background is classical Western music, but not hard classics. I would say what we call romantic classics or soft classics, because the hard classics require more time, more experience, and more hours of training. Soft classics are nice, and especially there's a certain type of music, what we call melancholic music, which is a little bit sad, but it's nice.
Do you feel that the music also can help you with photography because it's this type of rhythm and harmony? Do you do you sometimes feel that a picture has a soul where you can hear and listen and feel it?
This is absolutely right. And what I have done over the last 3 years, when I used to travel for short trips with my family, after we come back home, I actually put these images together, and I start to pick up some certain musical pieces and put them as background during the playing or the showing of that images. And they're really very nice and effective because each part or each music is actually expressing or it's going in harmony with the picture that is being showed. And that was really very nice, and I've done it quite a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times, and they were very kind of satisfactory to me.
Now, you've traveled to many countries abroad. Which is your favorite country?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but my favorite country is Britain. I love the United Kingdom very much because although I've lived in the States for 6 months, but I like the lifestyle of Britain. It's very kind of close to Egyptian lifestyle, but in a more advanced or more systemic way. They have this kind of, when you go down the streets, you feel it's similar to Cairo during all times. And the British are very systematic and organized. I like the lifestyle. I like to work there, but I can't go every now and then because, you know, it's not allowed now. It's very difficult to go and live in UK now because of the limitations of the numbers of people going there. But I still like to live in my home country, but every now and then I feel that I'm missing to go to Britain, to stay there, to work there for some time, or live there and then come back to Egypt.
You were awarded many awards. Now, out of the many awards you were awarded, which is the closest to your heart?
Well, in my career, if you're talking about photography awards, I already mentioned to you, but in my career, actually, I have a couple of awards, or one of them is an award, the other one is appreciation, certificate of appreciation. The first award that was in a conference here in Cairo. It was organized by our Egyptian society. I won the 3rd best paper presented. That was 10 years ago. But I have also certificate of appreciation from an hospital, Ministry of Health hospitals in Saudi Arabia. I've worked there for 6 months, and I have a certificate of appreciation from the doctors and from the department there, and that was very nice. I remember it very well, and I appreciate to have that.
Now, who's your role model?
Well, the role model...
And I know you have various fields, so you can say more than one.
in the field of medicine, my role model is actually, he's a Scottish doctor who has immigrated to United States. He's the first one I worked with when I left my country here. He's Professor Ian Jackson. He's a famous plastic surgeon. He's quite old now. He affected really, he influenced me a lot, inspired me a lot, because he was a very hard worker person, and he was very clever, and he has done everything in my field. So I really always dreamed to be like him. And other doctors here in Egypt, a lot of professors I've worked with, and I have to acknowledge them. We have Professor Dr. Tariq Atta. He's a professor of surgery in the medical school in Cairo University, and actually I learned with him a lot, and he was mentoring me all the time. I really acknowledge him. In the field of photography, I have 3 people affected me. I have to acknowledge my first teacher who has given us the lecture or the course in American University in Cairo. He's a photojournalist, Dr. Mr. Ala Abdel Nabi. And recently I have joined a private group of photography that was in one of the private clubs. That was Dr. Yusuf Mazhar and Dr. Adel Fawzi. Both of them really are very encouraging to me, and I remember them very well. And lastly, or not least, is Dr. Muhammad Ismail. He is the one who actually is teaching us how to look for a picture, how to have this art of seeing a photograph. And I acknowledge them and I appreciate their help and their encouragement.
What about music?
Music, my role model, but I've never reached him, is Mr. Ramzi. Yes, he's, of course, everybody knows him. I like him very much, but of course I'll never be able to be good in every aspect because I'm doing many things, so I can't be mastering everything in that. So, but at least he's my model. I'm dreaming to one day I'll be, well, maybe my sons or my children.
Now that would bring us to another thing, which is time management. Tell us about a day in your life, or how do you manage your time? My time,
I start in the morning. I go to hospitals that I work in. Every day I'm in a different hospital, or sometimes because if I go to most of them, the governmental hospitals, I work. The cancer center is taking most of my time, but I go to other governmental hospitals where I do general plastic surgery for trauma and for other defects rather than cancer defects. And I go to my private practice maybe twice or 3 times a day, but I come very late at night, and I'm very exhausted. But after 10 o'clock maybe I start to check on my photos and work on them and start to organize them or listen to music or play music. It's very late at night. It depends if I have effort or have enough power to do that. Maybe in the weekend I have better time, but it's only Friday in fact, because sometimes I work Saturday as well. So it's only Friday I have some time to do some private work, hobby work.
You have 3 children, I think. Now, does any of them carry any of your hobbies? Like, is any of them interested in music or photography?
Yeah, well, the 3 of them are interested in music. In fact, one of them, the youngest, he's using his ears a lot, which is good. And one of them is interested in photography, but they still need a lot of work because they are busy with their studies in school. But I tend to give them some lectures and help them or mentor them during their holidays. I'm encouraging them for that.
Now, how do you find the photography movement in Egypt right now?
I think it's evolving, and it's getting more popular. A lot of people are into photography. They are learning, going to courses and carrying cameras. I think it's a very evolving hobby now. A lot of Egyptians are starting to practice it, and there are a lot of events going on, a lot of exhibitions. So I think we're going in the right track.
There are a variety of, let's say, interests or themes that you could photograph. What's the thing that captures your eye? Like, are you into landscape, portrait? Tell me more about your preferences, actually.
Yes, my preferences are 3 actually: landscapes, people photography, and architecture. I like landscapes very much, but they usually you prepare yourself for that. The easiest thing, because you don't take it as a catch the moment. You get your kit ready and you go to the shooting place, and so it gives me a little bit of time to get prepared. While people photography, the interest about it is just you catch the moment of people. I like the people's expression and emotions. I don't just go, I don't like people, I don't ask them to pose to get the picture. I just go to a certain area and I ask people first, I'm going to photograph in here, and if I take their consent and acceptance, I just start to move around, and then when I catch someone doing something, I just take the photograph, and it's actually, sometimes it's satisfactory.
Did you have any adventures while you were taking these pictures?
Yes, quite a lot actually.
Would you tell us a bit? Would you share with us?
Well, recently there's a trend among people that, especially for photographers carrying big cameras like professional cameras, people get a little bit intimidated by that. They feel that this person who's photographing is doing something wrong or is arranging for a plot or something. But I'm shooting public places, and actually it's a culture of the people, especially recently over the last 5 years, in view of the political circumstances that we're living in. So I have a lot of harassment by people, and they thought I'm a foreigner taking photographs. I'm not an Egyptian, so I keep telling them, no, I'm Egyptian. I'm an amateur photographer. I'm just doing that to document how pretty our country is. So it takes a lot of time to convince people that you're doing something right. Actually, I'm sure most of the photographers, they have these challenges and they face it when they go down the streets in Cairo. So I was hoping that our Ministry of Culture or Ministry of Interior, they would just give us any kind of a license or something just to satisfy people that we are just shooting public places. I never shoot people without telling or without asking their consent or their acceptance, and that's everywhere. It's not here, because it's the right. But the problem with the bystanders who are around, when they look at you, what are they doing, and they like to intrude and they say, why he's doing this. In fact, I'm taking the consent of the person I'm shooting. But you know, this is some people have this. Attitude of this culture, not everyone, but it's a challenge and we have to face it every day.
Now, have you taken pictures abroad as you travel?
Yes, but interesting, I actually traveled in Egypt a lot over the last 2 years since I started to take photography in a serious way. Instead of traveling abroad, I travel here in Egypt in different locations, and also it is very interesting. I visit very interesting places that I have never thought of going to before. And that was probably pushed because I want to photograph, but maybe if I didn't like to photograph, I wouldn't have gone there. But actually I visited several areas like Bahariya Oasis, of course Luxor and Aswan in more details, and Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh. So actually there are a lot of scenes in Egypt, and in Cairo there are plenty of places and plenty of locations, and they're all concentrated in the middle of Cairo. I couldn't imagine that we have all this heritage, really.
Do you have a favorite location?
Favorite location? It's actually that's very difficult to answer, because it's not only one. I have many locations I like. I like to go to central Cairo or to the area of the Muazi Street and the Citadel or the castle, in addition to the areas where we have coasts like North Coast. There are plenty of things to shoot, but I like the sea view, and the seascapes in particular, they are very intriguing when you take pictures of them, especially in certain times of the day. And also I like to shoot the Nile. This is my third favorite area, because the Nile has a lot of impact also in the photographs. But if you choose the right moment, the right people, the right location.
Now, when you shoot, do you just shoot several shots and then pick the best, or do you wait for the perfect lighting? Like, how do you set yourself to take a picture?
There are certain times of the day you should avoid shooting, which is where the sun is very bright. In the midday, not a lot of people or photographer will go on that day because the sun is very bright. So it's either before sunset or in the sunrise, or maybe after 4 o'clock. So around that area, avoid just the areas of the midday where the sun is very bright and the exposure. What happens is the picture gets what we call washed out because it's very bright, overexposed. But if I'm planning to go for a location or a landscape, I visit this location first and I have a quick round and take where is the best angle of view. And then I study the area very well, and I study the people. Will they accept for me to come and take my photograph? And then I get my kids and I start the following day. When I come back home a day or two, I start to filter these photos, because not all of them, of course, are successful. And that's the advantage of digital cameras now. Before, when you used to shoot with a film camera, you are only restricted with 35 or 36 photographs or images. If you lose 20 of them, you lost them, you can't do anything with them. But in the digital field now, you can exclude some, you can adjust some, make them better. You can enhance them by the photo editing, but not manipulate them, but just enhance them, make them brighter, less exposed or exposed, make them remove spots. So that's acceptable actually all over, even all over the world. In most competitions they accept you to do some editing on photos, but not to manipulate.
Finally, I'd like to ask you about your dream.
Yes.
Your dream.
My dream in my field or in my career is to,
whichever is your biggest dream.
I divide them into two, because in my career I'm dreaming to train a lot of doctors who are really interested in our field, because our field is very challenging, and not a lot of doctors are interested in that field because it's very difficult and challenging. So I'm hoping to train as much as possible from as large number of doctors as possible in that field, because after some time we'll not be able to practice anymore. And to make more researches in that field, to improve in this research. In the field of photography, I'm dreaming to join more international competitions, and I'm hoping that all my pictures are successful. It's very hard because you never have successful images all the way through. But I'm hoping that to have all my pictures successful and have a good score, as we say.
Well, I wish you all the best, and I hope that all your dreams come true. Dr. Mohammed Rifat, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Well, that was Dr. Mohammed Rifat, and we've learned about his multifaceted life. We've learned about how he is into medicine, how he's into photography and music. And by learning about his story of success, we come to an end of this episode of Story of Success. Until we meet again next week with a new figure, it's goodbye.